Greetings everyone, Brad here with Mild-Mannered EDC. Hey, sorry about the thumb in the video. I was chopping onions in the kitchen and did myself in with this bad boy. So anyways, sorry about the thumb, gross. And today we're going to do a classic mild-mannered review of this very interesting knife. This is the Benchmade Outlast. Yeah, fascinating knife. And this particular knife was loaned to me for review by my buddy, Carlos, over at Carlos EDC. Go check him. Actually, I think this might be his actual hand there. So anyways, Carlos is a cool dude. He does some really good stuff. Get over, check out his channel, give him a subscribe. We've been swapping some knives back and forth, trying to help each other out. And yeah, I just really enjoy him. He's got a great personality and does some really good content. So, you know, get over there and check him out. And thank you, Carlos, for loaning me this. And I know this is his personal work knife. So hopefully, you know, he's been getting by with whatever hopefully he hasn't been using that Protect Sprint that he's got all the time on there as his new work knife. That's probably not getting it done for him. Great knife, but yeah, anyways. So let's go ahead and talk about this knife. So this knife is interesting because it has not only one, but two. Oh, we're not done. Try not to cut my wrist. Three.
You just blew my mind.
There we go. We've got 3 blades on this knife. Fascinating. You can see kind of in all its glory right there. So there you go. This is a very, very interesting knife. And this is, I think, definitely designed for, also got a little, definitely, I think, designed for, you know, construction, first responders, any sort of heavy duty kind of work. I think that's really where this, and this just definitely is a heavy duty kind of knife. So anyways, well, that's what we'll get talking about. So let's go ahead and before we get into our classic review, let's maybe do some specs here real quick, and then we'll do a size comparison, and then we'll get underway. So we'll do specs on all 2 of the 3 blades. Obviously, I'm not going to do specs on the little strap cutter there, but for the drop point blade, we've got 3.59 inches in length with a cutting edge of 3.25 inches and a blade thickness of 0.9 inches. So very good blade stock coming down to a nice edge. I think Carlos put his own edge on there. Very cool. This is a very slicey, pretty darn slicey blade. So pretty neat. Okay, now let's check out the Serrated Pry Bar Ii kind of blade they've got here. This one is slightly smaller at 3.25 inches. It's also slightly thicker, 0.10 inches, with a cutting edge of 2.625 inches. So there you go. That's what that's looking like. And with the largest of the two blades out, this has a overall length of 8.41 inches. So there you go. You can see that. And we've got a handle thickness, or a handle length, so sorry, I kind of inverted those. The handle length here is 4.82, and then it's a thick guy. So this is 0.69 inches thick. So this is well over, almost 3/4 of an inch thick. So yeah, that's and you definitely feel that in the pocket, because it's not only thick, but it's also pretty heavy. This is 5.96 ounces, so it's almost 6 ounces total. And, you know, there you go. But like I said, it's robust. It's designed to do that sort of thing. So there you go. How about a few size comparisons? And we'll just do it with the main sort of drop point blade out there. So you see that. How about with another Benchmade, the Benchmade Bug Out? There you go. And actually, I think you can draw some comparisons to the blade. Very much a Bug Outy looking blade. Very much a Benchmade kind of blade. Boy, they managed to get the stock, though, even thinner, I think. At least in the back end with the Outlast. So there you go. So we got a Benchmade Bug Out. So it's, you know, definitely thicker than the Bug. So just give you kind of a thickness comparison. Yeah, this is a pretty thick knife. How about a classic Swiss Army knife? There we go. And then just for fun, how about a Best Tech Texel? So that's how this thing is sitting. So anyways, there you go. Pretty hefty little knife. Ooh, got some gunk on my little thing there. All right. So let's go ahead and get underway with the classic review. When we do a classic review, right, we talk blade, or blades in this case. We'll talk action, and we'll talk scales and hardware, and then ergos and carry. So let's go ahead and get underway with the blades on this particular knife. So as I mentioned, you've got 3 blades on this. The first being this drop point blade, really an S30V, so standard kind of Benchmade steel there. It's all the blades, this included, do have that Cerakote coating, which, you know, some people like, some people don't. I'm not huge on the coatings generally, and primarily for those reasons that you can see right there. They wear, right? Benchmade Cerakote is quite good, so, you know, I'm not going to complain too much there, but yeah, so they're all coated, and there you go. You know, like I said, I found this to be a pretty darn good slicer. You know, it's thin, it's ground well, it's got this, well, it's got Carlos's edge on there, so I can't be 100% sure, but it's got that swedge. It's a nice, attractive looking blade. It's got a really nice choil. You know, I can't speak to how this came from the factory as far as how sharp it was. Boy, Carlos, you really did a nice edge on there. But regardless, yeah, so that's kind of this blade. There's nothing much more to say. It's just sort of a standard drop point blade, and I think it's very good for the purpose that it is. And S30V is a nice steel. So let's talk about the Serrated Blade. And this is an interesting blade. So this one's actually in a different steel. This is 3V. And 3V, they've also used this on their bailout, I believe it's the bailout. And they did catch a little flack for bailout. That's kind of interesting. Nick Shabazz worthy, that kind of punning.
Good one. Yep, that's a good one.
No, so they for running it a little soft, and you know, whatever. I mean, I don't know how you can tell. I mean, I guess it's soft. It's soft. It seems to me that for a blade like this, which is not only meant to have, you know, the serrations, you know, cutting rope or straps or some of the other work you do with serrated blades, it also obviously, as you can see, has this pry bar tip to it. And if you're going to have a pry bar tip to your knife, I think having it in that maybe slightly softer 3V makes a lot of sense to me. Now, I have no idea if this is run as soft as they run it on the bailout or vice versa. But my sense is, since it's from the same company, it probably is, but who knows? So there you go. So like I said, you definitely get you get the utility of the serrations, and you get a pry bar, which is really, you know, or a prying tip, which is really interesting. I mean, you know, we always talk all the time, don't pry with your knives, don't, you know. I mean, first of all, I pry. I mean, we all do it once in a while. Sometimes you got to dig something out or whatever it might be. It's not ideal, but this is made for that specifically. So I think that's pretty cool how they did that. So there you go. Yeah, I mean, and this sharp, I mean, yeah, there was no issues there. Again, you can see with that Cerakote finish on it as well. And then the final blade is right here, and that is the strap cutter. It is a legitimate strap cutter. It works quite well. I was cutting some various things up with it, and it definitely, you know, cuts well. So I mean, well, cutting up things with it. I was putting things in there and tearing it, mostly rope and some paracord and some other stuff. And it did cut just fine. So, you know, it's not one of those fake ones that are sometimes out there. So there you go. So let's talk action a little bit here. And action is kind of interesting on this knife because in many ways, it's got a typical Benchmade action. So, and maybe we should talk about the lock. So it's got what they're calling the option lock. So it's basically the axis lock. So just like the Benchmade bug out, right? The difference being there's only obviously one blade. And so you don't need, when you pull it back, the blade closes, simple as that. Now that's the same here. However, when you pull it back, it's closing this one. And then you've got to figure out, okay, well, I can open this one. And so it gives you sort of multiple, you're able to sort of lock, and you can have them both open if you want. You know, I'm not sure what the purpose for that would be, but you could, I suppose, if you wanted to. And then you can pull it back and they both close together. But anyway, so the option lock just gives you the ability to have one open or the other and still having that same mechanism, which I think is actually pretty darn slick. You know, like I said, I've not seen any other sort of knife work that way. So I think it's a pretty cool adaptation of a lock that they've been using for a long time. Now you'll notice one of the differences. So here's my bug out with that, you know, lovely action that we all love of the axis lock. Yeah, that doesn't. That's not the way this one works, and I'm guessing because of the way they had to do it, it just is not going to work that way. And likewise, when you have one of the blades open and you pull it back, yeah, it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't fall shut, but it definitely, it comes back in just fine. So I'm not knocking it at all. I don't think it needs to have that floppy action or anything, drop shuttiness, but it's just slightly different than what you might expect from a normal axis lock type activity. So, but what the action on both of these. So this obviously a thumb stud actuated main blade there, no problem. And then it's got this little finger cut out there so that you can flick that open, and it works really well. I mean, it's really easy. I was able to do it first time, really, even never handling this knife before. So yeah, both of those work really, really well. And like I said, I'm not complaining about this action at all. It's not as drop shutty as that, but I don't think that's what it's designed to do or be. So no problems with the action on those two blades. This is also interesting for the little strap cutter here. So not only is it, and this I think it shows the attention to detail on this knife. I mean, this is an expensive knife, and we'll talk about that at the end like we usually do, but the attention to detail was good here. One, it's got this, little sort of stud sticking out there, but it's done in a way that it doesn't stick too far above the scales, and it's not really in the way. It's not an ergo, issue or anything like that, but it also is very flickable. It's totally flickable. Now, this isn't locking like like the other two blades, but it does have. Let me see if I can show this. Let me see if I can get a flashlight going here. So if we can see, so let's open this up. So one, you can see there's that little hole right there down at the end, and you can see right in there, right? It's a little detent ball. So what they managed. Ooh.
Whoa! Stop, dude! What are you doing?
Whoa, I strobed us. Now I can't, with my gimpy thumb, I can't get the darn flashlight off. So what they've done here is something really cool. So they've created a detent system. So, no matter how hard you shake that, it's not coming out. And when it's open, you can hear it. It kind of clicks in, and so it stays put, and it doesn't loosen. But it's not difficult to do. It's simple flick open and flick shut. And you can do that. What I think's neat about that is you can be working like this and go, oh, okay, shut that, flip this around, boom, and you're there. And if you're a, or you're working this way or prying something, if this is a first responder or something using this knife, to be able to do all of this, with one hand, very simply, I think that's cool. So I give this really high marks on the action, even though the action isn't, like I said, what I would call the drop shutty that we're all used to with a lot of different knives. I think the action on this is pretty darn cool, and it definitely does the job for what you're doing, whether you're doing the main blade, the serrated pry bar blade, or the strap cutter. All are done well. All can be done with one hand, open and close. Cool. So action's good. Centering, I don't know how you do that with with two blades in the front there. They look fine, I guess. No issues there. So let's talk scales and hardware. You got, G10, black G10 here. This is very much a blacked out sort of knife, with the exception of the sort of stainless access or option lock studs there. They do look a little different than the normal studs, as you can see. They've got these sort of grooves in them around. I don't know if that's anything other than for aesthetics, but there you go. It might be designed to give you a little more traction if you're wearing gloves, because again, I think that's a big part of what this knife is designed for, somebody wearing gloves. But yeah, so you've got black G10, as I mentioned, around, hardware. I did not take this thing apart. I had remembered watching, one, it's not my knife, so I wasn't going to do that anyways, but I had seen Nick Shabazz's disassembly of this, and I remember that being a bit of a to-do, if I recall. And so I was, I'm sure that that's the case. I mean, there's a lot going on kind of in here. So even if this was my knife, I'm not sure I'd go that way. Typical blacked out Benchmade deep carry pocket clip. So there you go. done pretty nice, and we'll talk about that in carry. But yeah, I mean, you know, not much else to say there about handles or scales and hardware. So let's talk ergos and carry. So ergos, so that's where this knife is kind of interesting. Now, if you're wearing gloves, I think this is a perfectly good ergonomic knife. Not wearing gloves, it's decent. So, I mean, one of the problems, though, is, and you'll see, as you're holding the knife, you're bearing down with your finger or some part of your finger on this thin, you know, spine of this other blade here. So, I mean, you know, when they're both open, it's great. But yeah, I mean, and when one is closed and the other is open, either way. Now, I have found generally that when the primary blade is open, it's less comfortable than when you're holding it using the pry bar blade. And there is a little bit of a, you know, I don't know if it's a finger choil or if that was what it's intended to be, but it definitely can function like that. I mean, you got to be a little careful because you'll find yourself, you know, right up on that, you know, the cutting edge of the blade there. But yeah, I mean, so ergos are okay. They're not fantastic. I think they're definitely more designed for gloves or something like that. The other thing with the ergos that I'm not huge on is this. So it's got this little tungsten glass breaker. I don't understand glass breakers really all that much anyways. I mean, couldn't you just jam this thing on the I don't know if you need that. I mean, I guess you do. I don't know, whatever. But the problem with it is it's pointy and it's pretty sharp, and when you're holding it, at least when I do it, you know, it gets right in there into the palm of your hand, and you feel it. Simple as that. Does it hurt? I don't know. I don't know if it hurts, but you definitely just notice it and feel it. So I don't think it's ideal. You know, they could have put it maybe somewhere else or just not put one in altogether, but whatever is what it is. I see the point of it on this kind of knife. So that's kind of where I am on the ergos. The other thing that kind of bugs me is, you know, I'm a little nervous to use that flashlight again, the strobe effect again. So you can see how this is wide. This is a wide opening in the back. I did not have an issue of my finger touching the blade in there. I'm not sure that I can. You know, my fat little piggy there, I don't think it's getting in there, but nevertheless, it's there. So, you know, something to be mindful of. It's a pretty good size opening. So something could potentially go in there. I don't know. So carry, again, you know, I found the carry on this to be fine, other than it's thick and pretty heavy. You know, it's got a great deep carry pocket clip. As I mentioned before. So when this is in your pocket, the only thing sticking out is that little cone of the glass breaker, more than anything else. And, you know, like I said, I have no issues with it other than it's heavy and thick. Like I said, I think it carries pretty well. Again, I'm not huge on this. You know, I did get a little bit of rake on my hand at one point, you know, running my hand across it. But anyways, so there you go. So this is the Outlast. The Outlast is about $275. Somewhere in there. I think if you buy it on Benchmade's website, it's like $325 or something crazy. But it's definitely expensive. You know, how much of that is the butterfly tax? How much of that is it's got a lot of uniqueness going on? It's just a different kind of knife. It's for a purpose. You know, if you're buying this, it's for a specific thing. You know, I don't know. It's more than I would pay, I think. And I don't think this knife is for me anyways, because it just doesn't suit. I don't really have it. I don't have the use for it. I don't do anything that requires this kind of a knife, but I definitely can see the utility for it for a lot of people. So there you go. For $275, I don't know. It's up to you to, you know, you've got S30V, you've got 3V, you know, whatever, but it's got a lot going on, and it's got a really interesting design, and it's certainly got some cool engineering, and, you know, I'm sure there were some hours put into all of that to make this workable, and I don't think this is probably the simplest thing to manufacture either. So anyways, there you go. So this will be a little bit of a longer review, but in essence, we're sort of reviewing kind of like 3 knives in one, sort of, but that's okay. Anyways, that's where I'm at on this. I think it was a really cool knife. I was really, really appreciative of Carlos loaning this to me. Like I said, this was his work knife, so I hope he's getting by. He's been getting by with it, but without it rather. But it was this is not a knife I probably would have had any access to or ability to handle had he not sent it my way. So really appreciate that again, Carlos, and I'll get it back to you ASAP. So anyways, this is a cool little knife. Cool knife. The Benchmade Outlast. Let me know if this is a knife you own or you carry, or what you think, how you think they did with the engineering and the idea, concept of all of this. And yeah, I'd love to hear it down in the comments below. Thanks as always for watching. I hope this was a useful review for you and a little entertaining, I hope. With that, stay safe out there, be mild-mannered to one another, and all the best.